Says is coming next. Mark Taylor, welcome back to Revealing the Truth.
Thank you for having me.
Mark, you've taken us all the way up to the time in which you've endured 10 years of debilitating illness to the point of bringing you truly within a year's, had it been untreated, a year's ending your life, and you're a young man. Okay, what were you doing? What were you thinking? What was going on when the stage was being set for you to receive on April the 28th this stunning word from God?
Well, I had still been sick for a long time, and it was one of those nights, basically, that I was there fighting the battle of the mind. Basically, is this stuff ever going to end? Sick to my stomach, just in agony, basically. And I was sitting in front of the TV. And I was watching, I think it was Fox News or something like that, and I saw Donald Trump in an interview. And all of a sudden, as I'm listening to Donald Trump, because at the time he was toying about running in 2012. He didn't announce he was running. He was just toying with the idea. And everybody was saying it was a joke, this, that, and the other. And so he never announced he was running. So I'm listening in this interview, and all of a sudden, because I was sitting in the living room, and I heard the voice of the Lord say, "You're hearing the voice of a president." So I got up. And I came in here where I'm at right now, which is a bedroom I converted into an office. I sat down, I put pen to paper, just like the Apostle Paul, and I started writing out what the Holy Spirit was telling me. And that was April 28th, 2011. And it was I titled it Commander-in-Chief. And it says, "The Spirit of God says, I have chosen this man, Donald Trump, for such a time as this. For as Benjamin Netanyahu is to Israel, so shall this man be to the United States of America. For I will use this man to bring honor, respect, and restoration to America. America will be respected once again as the most powerful and prosperous nation on earth other than Israel. The dollar will be the strongest it has ever been in the history of the United States and will once again be the currency by which all others are judged. The Spirit of God says the enemy will quake and shake and fear this man I have anointed. They will even quake and shake when he announces he is running for president. It will be like the shot heard across the world. The enemy will say, 'What shall we do now? This man knows all our tricks and schemes. We have been robbing America for decades. What shall we do to stop this?' The Spirit says, 'Ha! No one shall stop this that I have started. For the enemy has stolen from America for decades, and it stops now. For I will use this man to reap the harvest that the United States has sown for, and plunder from the enemy what he has stolen, and return it sevenfold back to the United States. The enemy will say, Israel, Israel, what about Israel? For Israel will be protected by America once again. The Spirit says, yes, America will once again stand hand in hand with Israel, and the two shall be as one. For the ties between Israel and America will be stronger than ever, and Israel will flourish like never before. The Spirit of God says, I will protect America and Israel, for this next president will be a man of his word. When he speaks, the world will listen, and know that there is something greater in him than all the others before him. This man's word is his bond, and the world and America will know this, and the enemy will fear this, for this man will be fearless. The Spirit says when the financial harvest begins, so shall it parallel in the spiritual for America. The Spirit of God says in this next election they will spend billions to keep this president in. It will be like flushing their money down the toilet. Let them waste their money, for it comes from and is being used by evil forces at work, but they will not succeed. For this next election will be a clean sweep for the man I have chosen. They will say things about this man, the enemy, but it will not affect him. They shall say it rolls off of him like the duck. For as the feathers of a duck protect it, so shall my feathers protect this next president. Even mainstream media will be captivated by this man and the abilities I have gifted him with, and they will even begin to agree with him, says the Spirit of God.
This video belongs to lordsprophecy.com. Please visit our website for more update.
They will spend billions to keep this president out.
Yes.
We're still talking about a year into his presidency, the billions that were poured out, and right, how they tried to keep him out of office. So right, you give this word April 28, 2011. When does Donald Trump officially announce his candidacy?
I think it was June 15th, 2015, I believe.
Okay, so a little bit more than 4 years prior to, you have made this declaration, this proclamation, this prophecy. When did you begin to share it?
I did not share it until, I want to say, the beginning of 2015. I shared it with Dr. Colbert at the time. I had walked into his office for a yearly checkup or whatever it was, and I handed him a folder. I had a couple of prophecies in it because at the time I didn't have a platform. I just knew that they were good Christian people, and I just wanted to run it by him. I said, hey, this is what I wrote in 2011. I handed him a folder first off, and he set the folder aside, and he started checking me out, and then he started prophesying over me. And he says, Mark, I feel like the Spirit of God's saying that you're going to wake up. God's going to start downloading some words to you, and you're going to begin to write these prophetic words out. I said, well, it's already started, Doc. I said, that's what's in that folder I just handed you. And we kind of laughed, and he says, you mean that folder you handed me? And I said, yeah. He said, I thought those were signs and symptoms you were handing me. I said, no, those are prophecies. So he read the one that I just read, Commander in Chief, and he says, look, I want to share this with Mary because his wife, because I think she would want to hear this. So he shared it with Mary, and that's where the story kind of took off. She started. She said she recognized the rhythm of God in it, and she started handing it out to big leaders, across the nation, and this, that, and the other.
So it doesn't stop here.
No, that what you just said a second ago, and when it says this next election, they will spend billions to keep this president in. It alludes to the fact and that he would run for a third term. I wrote a prophecy saying that he would try for 3 later on in that. It's in the book, I believe. And a lot of people gigged me on that, and they said, "Oh, he can't do that because it's unconstitutional," and this, that, and the other. And this is what I tell people about the prophetic: you better be very, very careful how you treat the prophetic, because the prophetic is mysteries. They are mysteries, and the Bible says to search a matter out. And people are so quick to jump to conclusions as to what they think it means, and when in fact we don't know truly what it means. Even me, when I write something, I don't even know what it means sometimes. I just know God's speaking through me, and I don't even realize what it is to the degree until it comes to pass. Well, when I wrote that prophecy that he would seek a third term, we're seeing that come to pass now, because he's got an office 2 miles from the White House. He's got a shadow government, and he's trying to undermine President Trump and everything that he does. Now we're seeing the third term truly take place. So it's stuff like that people have to be careful with. So in this, where they said they will spend billions to keep this president in, well, that was kind of his agenda, because they spent, how many billions did they spend to get Hillary in? How many billions did they spend to keep Donald Trump out? And Hillary Clinton was already deemed that it would be an Obama third term anyway. So
in a November 7th interview you did with Right Wing Watch, it says, Mark Taylor, the firefighter, prophet, and right-wing conspiracy theorist who claims that God told him that Donald Trump would become president years ago, appeared on Greg Hunter's USA Watchdog, where he revealed that God told him that 2 of the 5 former presidents will soon die, and the other 3 will face jail time as divine retribution for criticizing President Trump.
I never did an interview with Right Wing Watch. They're probably commenting on the fact that what I did with Greg Hunter.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what they're doing. No, I did an interview where I wrote a prophetic word called the Evil Crew of 32. And it talks about the 5 ex-presidents, where God's going to remove 2 of them from the face of the earth, basically, as signs. And the other 3, Obama would do jail time, basically. Clinton would probably do jail time. And then Bush would be very close. So they're taking my words and kind of spinning that a little bit.
Well, but we do see that there is a great conspiracy going on. Is it your position prophetically that what is the outcome going to be of this Mueller investigation? Will Hillary face a prosecution for the Clinton Foundation, for the Uranium One deal? Will Bill Clinton finally be held accountable as so many others are being held accountable?
Yes.
What is God saying to you in regards to this? What your publishing company, Defender, is standing behind Lieutenant Colonel Bob McGinnis,
Right.
behind Carl Gallups, behind Josh Peck, behind those. They're saying there's a shaking coming.
Well, there's a shaking coming. It's already started. I wrote a prophetic word called Don't Be Deceived, Get in the Fight. That was October 13th, 2015, and it addresses the Clintons. And it talks about your time has come to an end. You're both being omitted for the crimes you have committed. Hillary's is no great secret, but they will be her downfall, but Bill's will be exposed one after the other, and it will be a windfall. For this time you will not escape prosecution and restitution for the rape and prostitution. You thought no one saw, but I, the Lord, see it all. Now this will be your downfall. And it talks about how this sitting president at the time, Obama, basically he's spreading division and corruption, and that he would be held accountable as well. He was going to go down and be ripped and stripped of the presidency. Now, a lot of people thought that was going to be impeached. I didn't think that's what that really meant. I thought that would be after he was out of office, God was going to strip him of the presidency, because if he's charged with treason, that immediately becomes stripped of that title of the presidency. So, and he will be held accountable. And so, I mean, so will Bill Clinton, so will Hillary, all these people. And the other one that I wrote was about a month after that, November 17th, 2015, called Time is Up for Those Who Are Corrupt. And it's talking about all the senators, the congressmen and women, judges of all kinds at the local, state, and federal levels will be held accountable for this corruption. Time is up for those who are corrupt. And even the Supreme Court would not be immune to their backdoor deals that's been going on. So God is going to literally clean up all this darkness that's going on. They will be held accountable. What are we up to now? Close to between 9,000 and 10,000 indictments right now, sealed indictments that I've heard. So you will see these people rounded up. You will see them held accountable. Gitmo was already told to expand. So they're getting ready right now. There's a reason why, too. Greg Hunter's a personal friend of mine, and he did a fantastic job on Donald Trump's executive order he just signed December 21st, and he went in depth as to what that actually meant. And as far as confiscating assets and monies, I've been saying all along, if you want to stop all of this right now, period, is arrest George Soros. You cannot just arrest him, but you have to confiscate his assets and his money. That would stop Antifa, Black Lives Matter, all this money going to Barack Obama's so-called shadow government, the Clintons. All of this stuff would stop. There's your border wall money right there. He's got enough money to build a border wall on the northern and southern border. But the point being is that all this stuff is fixing to come to a head. Now, about a month before Donald Trump got elected, I went on record and was saying, or the Lord started dealing with me about a month before he was elected, that there would be military-style tribunals coming for this corruption, because this corruption is, the length, the depth, the width of this is so big. We've never seen anything like this in history. It would, and the Lord told me it will make Nuremberg look like a cakewalk, period. And so you're going to see all this stuff take out. Now, I went on record the day after he got elected on another interview I did, saying that there would be military-style tribunals, and now you're starting to see some of this stuff begin to take place.
So that brings into question two things. Okay? First of all, a clear delineation between what all of us who are conservative biblical worldview analysis are all in agreement on many of these issues. So how do we determine what you're saying from what we're in agreement on to prophecy? And do you have a position on what's going to happen with Jeff Sessions? In order to have a Nuremberg, you've got to have a leader at the top who is going to drive for the most thorough trial in the history of mankind, where the convictions rolled out even today. The Nuremberg test, anybody who was a part of the Hitler regime, 89 years old, 98 years old, 102 years old, living in Dubuque, Iowa, if it's found out that you were a guard, you are going to be held and tried under the Nuremberg standards.
Right.
Prophetically, what is it that we're not seeing as conservative commentators, as conservative biblical voices within the world? What is it we're not seeing that God is showing you that's going to unfold? And are there names in play? Does Jeff Sessions get taken out, and does Trey Gowdy
Right.
who is a man who says, "Oh, these are just sparring. These may look like fighting gloves.
Right.
These are just what I warm up in. These are what I
Right.
keep. These are just what I use to keep my hands warm." Okay,
Right.
you have
I think that
no idea.
I think the biggest thing is that even Greg will tell you, even as an investigative reporter, because we've had many conversations, it's getting harder and harder to vet sources right now in this technological information age that we live in. So the one thing I will tell people: be careful who and what you listen to. Now, as far as Jeff Sessions is concerned, if he's not doing his job, I'm not too worried about it, because God's going to remove him too, and He'll put the right person in. Because now the other thing you have to remember too is that there is some ops going on, I believe, behind the scenes that are being made to look like certain things to put the enemy at ease, when in fact the opposite is happening, if that makes sense, because they don't want their enemy knowing what's happening. Donald Trump is a genius, literal genius. This guy is 10 steps ahead of everyone. He's not going to show his hand as to what he's doing. And this is where the public has to come about, and even the evangelicals, they've got to be praying to give this man the sevenfold spirit to understand and deal with the enemy, how it needs to be done, and round these people up. You don't want your enemy knowing what you're doing ahead of time. So what's the most effective way? Put him at ease. So it looks like Jeff Sessions may not be doing anything, when in fact he probably is, and he's probably on board. So it could be made to look like nothing's happening behind the scenes. So that's what I want to make people aware. As far as the military-style tribunals, I know I have talked to Greg. He's got sources that have confirmed that some of this stuff is going to happen, these tribunals. Now, here's the other thing I want to point out. I've got some military friends, and I didn't even realize this. And, they had called up 1,000 retired officers from the military. And one of the friends of mine is an officer, and he said, basically, he says, some of that stuff was supposed to be like for training the troops and this, that, and the other, getting them back up to where they needed to be, this, that, and the other. But he says, the other thing that comes to mind here is that what if they're calling these guys back for the tribunals? Because it's officers that sit on those tribunals.
Right.
And he says, if they call me, he says, I would do it in a heartbeat. So those are the things that we have to be looking at. We're not going to be told what's going on right now.
So prophetically, though, and certainly these are things we can talk about. My sources in Washington, my
Right.
sources in the Middle East, we all have our sources. When I published my book 2 years ago on the weaponization of DNA, it was a blockbuster. What do you mean you can weaponize DNA? And gave its history and its intent. If you wipe out the Levitical line, which is now a Y chromosome to determine if you are one, then there is no Sanhedrin, there is no return of Jesus. If you want to know Satan's ultimate plan, it's to wipe out the Levitical line, and he reigns forever. How do you do that?
Right.
You weaponize the DNA, and people are going, this is unheard of, it's unconscionable, and every day they're licking that little package and sending it to 23andMe, and I'm saying, listen, I don't want my DNA on anybody's database. I don't want my DNA in anywhere where you can figure out who I am and what I am, because there's somebody out there who wants to get rid of me, and they can take that and figure out a virus or some venom that will just attack that particular strand. And I put it in the water system and only random people die and nobody looks into it. It's because they've weaponized DNA.
Right.
And it's logical, rational, reasonable, and there are at minimum 45 laboratories around the world working on weaponizing DNA for population control and for the elimination of certain people groups. So
I'm glad you're the only one that I've talked to at this point that has actually verified what I've been saying all along, that it's the goal of man to change their DNA. Is to hand it over to the Luciferian bloodline, basically, so to speak. And it's like, man, so it's like this is kind of a great year, honestly.
Well, and this was my it was birthed out of a betrayal, and I took a sabbatical year, and I went and I talked to former NSA, CIA, Mossad, FBI, intelligence workers who were willing to talk to me about what they found. Why did 200 geneticists, when the Iron Curtain fell, relocate from Moscow to Tehran? Okay. Why does Tehran have the largest genetics institute in the world? Why would you care about the genealogy, the Ancestry.com of Persia? They're working on the weaponization of DNA to, I mean, guess if they could find a DNA strand for Sunnis, do you not think that they wouldn't be developing some kind of weapon that would kill the Sunnis so that the Shiites could survive? I mean, you have to really wrap your mind around all of this. But my question to you from a prophetic standpoint, and we're talking about the prophecies, is what new revelation do you have prophetically that you're able to share with us, if any? And if not, then we know that there's certain logical things that are progressing that will, in time, go back to in Ezekiel, go back to an Isaiah, go back to a time of Daniel, go back and connect the dots. So my full faith and confidence is as prophecy is unfolding. My question to you as a messenger is there a new message that God's given you that you're ready to release?
Well, I don't have anything that I'm ready to release that I just released, like the evil crew of 32 that I talked about here is talking about these corrupt leaders, basically. It doesn't matter if they're in politics. It doesn't matter if they're in the churches. You will see some disappear from the face of the earth. God's had it with the corrupt. Judgment starts in the house of the Lord. That's where it's at now. It's on the leadership of America. It's not on America. It's in the systems, basically, is what is under judgment right now. Anything new right now is going to be the energy. I'm working on another one right now that's going a little bit more in depth on the energy independence, basically, that the Lord showed me. Right here, December 16th, 2016, I wrote it called Energy, and that America and Israel would be energy independent. And basically what we're fixing to see, brother, is we are fixing to see an energy explosion here and with Israel like we've never seen in history, and they will both be energy independent. America will no longer be an import nation, but an export nation. Now, here's the key. When I wrote that prophecy, December 16, 2016, it says that you countries that have dominated energy for decades, you move your evil agenda and are charged with this guilt. Your days are numbered, and you will say, look how fast this was built. My America and my Israel will be one, and because of this, you will be undone. Because of the rage and the money you made from those countries you manipulated and attacked from within, you will now have to turn to those countries for help on a whim. For your wells will go dry, and your finances too, for you will now be fed from the red, white, and blue. And what God is saying there is that these countries, these OPEC countries that have been literally using money to terrorize Israel, terrorize America, using that money for terrorism, their wells are going to go dry, and their finances will also. And what astounded me is about 2 months after I wrote that prophecy, or after Donald Trump got in, he went to Saudi Arabia for the first time after he got inaugurated. And he did a huge arms deal. Nobody could figure out why they were doing the arms deal. Well, someone sent me a Fox News clip of they were saying the reason they were doing the arms deal is because Saudi Arabia's wells were about to go dry. My mouth hit the floor when I saw that. And what you're going to start seeing is that these Middle Eastern countries who have been terrorizing, using that money for corrupt ways, their wells are going to go dry. So America's going to go from an import nation to an export nation. So you're going to see a whole new dynamic here in America and Israel, period.
Well, I'm encouraged that the contemporary Word of God continues to come to you in relationship to America in Israel, which is really, Israel is all that matters. Okay. That is the epicenter. That is what the Bible is about. That is about the Lord's return. And looking at it in that regards, America is doing the right things, and the right man is in office to do so. I strongly encourage those who have not read the Trump prophecies, the astonishing true story of the man who saw tomorrow and what he says is coming next, that you do reveal in here some clues as to what is to follow. And yes. So I want to thank you for your candor, for your humility, and for your sharing the truth of the Trump prophecies. And what a great opportunity to meet you and hopefully will continue as you release more of the prophecies that God has given you that are formulated to the point of understanding that God is giving you words, but has not yet released you to combine them into the message. And this is the process of the prophet. So it's not that you're still not in the season of prophecy. You're in the gathering of the word in order to assemble the word and then be released to deliver the word that God has ordained. And I respect that tremendously in you, Mark.